Okay, my take on Joe Burrow wanting out of Cincinnati, whatever. Okay, recently Joe Burrow was doing a press conference with him probably having a bad day or just whatever, saying that if he wanted to keep playing football, he has to have fun doing it. And I mean, he says that also he was struggling uh, with coaches and also playing football both. Sorry, I'm having trouble explaining things. I have a rough time explaining things. Um, but but when we look physically at Joe Burrow and what he's going through, I mean, I kind of don't blame him because he is playing with a really bad O-line, and the Bengals has been losing. I mean, you would think playing with generational talents like Jamar Chase and with a solid number 2 wideout in T. Higgins, you would think that would help Joe Burrow enough. But nope. Playing with a really bad O-line could really ruin you. And also people's been comparing him to Andrew Luck and all that stuff. Comparing him to Andrew Luck, Carson Palmer. But I think Carson Palmer, I think it's probably the most common because, me personally, I think Joe Burrow, I think it could probably go down that path because, Carson Palmer, drafted in 2003 by the Cincinnati Bengals, wore the number 9, the same number Joe Burrow's wearing. He was viewed as a generational talent, and, he actually had a few good seasons, Pro Bowl honors, 3 Pro Bowls, 2 with the Cincinnati Bengals, and also the comparison that him and Joe went through injuries. They got banged up. And it got so bad for Palmer that he demanded a trade, but the Bengals refused. They kept refusing, but Palmer even went far as to saying that he might retire if the Bengals don't trade him. But the Bengals eventually just upped and traded him to the Oakland Raiders, which is now the LV Raiders. And which is scary, probably the most scary that, okay, Carson Palmer, he played 7 seasons in Cincinnati when he finally chose just to demand a trade. And when we look at Joe Burrow, he's in his 6th year with the Cincinnati Bengals, going on his 7th. And if this act continues, I could see this situation pulling off a Carson Palmer. I could definitely see it being Carson Palmer-like. Both of them going through injuries and, just demanding a trade. And with Joe saying that he's not having fun doing it. And now I'm not saying that, which I do disagree with that Andrew Luck comparison because both QBs dealt with injuries. They were playing with really rough O-lines, but the difference with Luck, he retired because of his health and his body couldn't take it anymore. So that's far different than Joe. So I think the most likely outcome is just, I could see it being the same situation what Carson Palmer was in. Next year, I could honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this happens. I wouldn't be surprised. I could honestly see Joe forcing his way out of Cincinnati next year in his 7th season. I could see it happening. I could see it. Just by how this situation's panning out and him just getting injured a whole lot, I could see it happening. I could see it. And when we look at Andy Dalton's, his time in Cincinnati, it's true he might have spent 9 seasons with the Bengals. He spent 9 seasons. The guy was a good quarterback, but he just wasn't a generational talent. Or I don't know how to explain it. I don't have nowhere else to put it. And He was playing with a better O-line. Let's just say that. He was playing with a way better O-line than what Joe Burrow's playing right now and what Carson Palmer played with in Cincinnati. I mean, honestly, if the Bengals were to trade him, honestly, I think either the Vikings would be a perfect place for him. I think the Vikings would be a good place for him, but honestly, I could see him being traded to the same place what Carson Palmer got traded to. I mean, I could see it happening. Joe Burrow going to the Raiders. I mean, I could be wrong, and a lot of people might call me crazy, but I could definitely see Joe Burrow getting traded to the Raiders after his 7th season, pulling a Carson Palmer. I mean, I don't quote me on it. I could be wrong, but yeah. I mean, what's your all's thought on it? Leave it in the comments below. Leave it in the comments.